Hey guys, my name's Nicole and I came to Metz in 2017 and I've just been working as a nurse in a hospital in Lansing, Michigan. And I'm here to share a story about how God used a simple tool called the 3 circles to share the gospel with one of my patients and what their response was. So I have been using this tool a lot in my sphere of influence at work with coworkers, patients, neighbors, and I really like it just because it's simple and clear. So a few months ago I got a report that one of my patients was in a car accident and paralyzed from the waist down, and that's all I really knew. And then when I was looking further into the notes, I could see that it was a suicide attempt. So when I went into the room, I could just tell that this man was really soft-hearted and pretty remorseful about the whole situation. And so I was asking the Lord, like, how do you want me to enter into conversation with this man? God, would you give me wisdom, help me to be sensitive to what he needs, and also bold in sharing hope with him. And so when I went into the room, I asked him, so I know that you were in a car accident, but could you tell me a little bit more about what happened? Do you remember? And he said, yeah. And he was very open with me and told me that he basically tried to drive himself into a tree and wanted to end his life, and just shared with everything else that was going on in his life beforehand. And so then I asked him, well, when you drove yourself into the tree, what did you think was going to happen after? What do you think was going to happen when you died? And he said, I don't really know. Like, I'd like to believe that there's a heaven and that I'd be good enough for it, but I don't really know. And then he asked me what I thought. And so I got to just share with him like a 15-second testimony, and we were chatting about faith. And then I asked him, could I just draw you a picture that would help explain everything that we're talking about in a really clear and simple way? And he said, yeah. And I didn't have any paper with me, but I was wearing gloves, so I drew this picture on my gloves, and I'm just going to share it with you as I was sharing it with him. And so I said, hey, everyone in this world probably could agree that we live in a really broken place. You just turn on the TV, you look at social media, there's brokenness all over the place. So I'm just going to represent that here. But this is not the way that God intended it to be when he first created the world. So when he first created it, it was perfect. There was no pain and suffering, there was no brokenness, we had everything we needed. But starting with the very first humans, we chose to leave God's original design to go to brokenness. We departed. Thought we could do it on our own. And this is what the Bible calls sin. But the thing with brokenness is we don't like to stay here. So we'll try all sorts of things to get out. This might look different for all people. It might look like climbing the ladder of success and work and school, making a lot of money, being successful. Some people might turn to a relationship to try to find life in another broken person. Some people might do a lot of good things, be a good person, read their Bible, go to church, and even though those are good things, they are never enough. They never get somebody out of brokenness. And some people might experience so much pain and suffering that they might just do things to numb it out, like drugs, alcohol, and even attempts of suicide. And when I said that, he just started to weep. And so the thing with these attempts to get out is they're like a rubber band. They can only stretch so far before we're snapped right back into reality that we live in a broken world and there's nothing that we could ever do on our own strength to get ourselves out of brokenness. And so that's bad news, but God loved you so much that he didn't want you to stay here. He still wanted a relationship with you even though you went your own way, even though we all did. So he did for us what we could never do for ourselves. He made a little door out of this broken world through his son, Jesus. So Jesus came down, he left his perfect place, came down, came near to us, and then he paid the price for our sin, forgiving us, canceling our sin, and then 3 days later he rose again, proving to the world that this guy really was God and he really did love us, and he did all of this so that we could be restored back into relationship with him and be made new. And all we would have to do is turn from our ways of trying to get out of brokenness. They rip us off, rob us of joy, they never work, and surrender. Surrender and trust in Jesus, that he really did come. He came, he forgave you, making him the King and Lord of your life. So everyone in this world can find themselves in one of two places, either here in relationship with God or here in brokenness. And then I asked him, where are you? And he said, I'm in brokenness. And I said, well, where do you want to be? And he said, I want to be in relationship with God. And then I asked him what was holding him back. And he said, nothing really. I feel like this is a second chance. And so then I asked him if he wanted to open the door of his heart to the Lord and be made new, be restored into relationship with God. And he said yes. And so we got to pray together, and he was just in tears. And it was just really cool to see somebody pass from spiritual death to spiritual life. And he told me, I had him the next few days too, and he told me that he called his wife and he shared the gospel with her, and they were just so excited to have new life in God, even though his physical circumstances didn't change. He was made new. So that is just one story about how God is working in the hospital right now with everything going on. I think that people are just way more open to a hope beyond themselves. So I am just praying that God would give all of us the wisdom and the boldness to share hope with our patients and coworkers.